Hello everyone, we are live yet again, and this is one of my authors chats of the week. It's actually the second one I'm doing this week, trying to get ahead of the curve, because there's always going to be a week where I'm going to miss a chance to hang out, so I always like to have extra time up front. I also share these weekly on my YouTube channel, so that's also why. Hello, hello!
Hi there, hi there!
How are you?
I'm good, I'm good.
It's been a moment since we've talked last time, and I feel like a lot of things that have happened for both of us in the interim, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a conversation about where we were going to do this.
That's true. That is true, because, yeah, I didn't know if this platform was going to be accessible for us, and coming up with alternatives, and wasn't really happy about planning for that, but it's always good to know plan B and C, because that what happened here and TikTok is perfect example. It could happen anywhere. It may still happen here, but always have like your plan B set up.
Yeah, I'm working diligently on my plan B, C, and E. B, C, D, and E. Yeah, no D. We're just going B, C, and E. Yeah.
That's well. Let's start off with you, and I hope you like my book. Sorry, I just saw a pop up there. Yay! I lose my train of thought already. This is too early for that. I'll let you reintroduce yourself and what you write, because there's always going to be new people jumping on and may not know who you are. So why don't you do that, and then we will go from there.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Neil Christiansen, and I write modern noir thrillers. I have 2 books out. Dark White, which is this puppy right here. And then I have a new book out as of December 31st that is Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey, and I would love to show you that, except I just sent my last copy signed off to someone who bought a signed copy. So I literally... I know. Well, I have them on order, but they just didn't arrive in time. Ingram Spark takes forever to send copies. They say they're en route, but they did not make it in time for today. But so I don't have a cover copy to show you of that. But if you watch any of my videos, you'll see the cover of that.
Well, it's always exciting, and I'm glad you mentioned Ingram Spark, because one of my tentative, I've said tentative, I feel like, for 3 years, tentative goals this year would be to figure out if I really want to try to take my books wide, the physical ones. I'm doing that with my ebooks and most of my audiobooks, but for the physical copies, and I know a lot of people use Ingram Spark, but they have, I've heard, a love-hate relationship with that platform. So I don't know what your experiences are outside of. They didn't get here today.
I don't have a love-hate relationship with Ingram Spark. I have a very mid relationship with Ingram Spark. Okay. I don't have, so the reason most people really hate Ingram Spark is the return thing. Okay. And that is that if you have books returned, you can lose all your money. Okay. Because you're selling to book. So Ingram Spark, the important thing to remember is that, and I talked a little bit about this in my video about making a living as an indie author, but Ingram Spark, the reader is not their consumer. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do they have an e-commerce thing? They do. It's super bare bones. They'll give you a link. You can set a price, and people can order individual copies from Ingram Spark. But I'll tell you, if I was a customer and I went to the landing page that is the Ingram Spark e-commerce landing page to buy a book, I'd be like, this feels sketchy. I'm not going to order it. Okay. It looks like a 3rd grader who just took an HTML class, put it together. So Ingram Spark's customer is not the reader. Ingram Sparks is there to sell to bookstores and distributors like Amazon and libraries and things like that. So in order to get into a bookstore, you have to offer them a 55% discount on your retail price. And they buy the book at 55% off. And if they return it, they get refunded that 55%, and you have to pay Ingram the full retail price. Okay?
That's what
So,
scares me.
yeah. So here's the thing, right? And this is the important thing that I think especially early indie authors need to understand. Okay? I do Ingram Spark for two reasons. One, it gets my book listed on websites like Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart. Like they can go to independent bookstores and the bookstore will look it up and be like, "Yeah, we can get that for you." Right? So it gives it the sense of being legitimately like out there, right? And most libraries will only order from Ingram Spark. So, uh, and also I want to be really clear. It's not Ingram Spark.
Yeah.
Ingram is the company, and the catalog is the Ingram company. And
Mhm.
Ingram Spark is this little corner of their company that does print on demand for self published authors. Okay. And when you go through Ingram Spark, you get onto the Ingram catalog. Not Ingram Spark is not, bookstores don't order from Ingram Spark. They don't care or know what Ingram Spark is. Like they know Ingram, that's the catalog. So to get on that Ingram catalog so that if someone walks into their local bookstore and says, "Can you get this book for me?" and they look it up, they go, "Yeah, absolutely, I can get it for you." That's great. The other thing is libraries, and I like nothing makes me happier than my book being in libraries. Like when I see my book in libraries, that like blows me away. It makes me so happy. I do not push people to Barnes and Noble and those places. Because the other thing that you have to understand is that even if you're on Ingram's catalog, you publish through Ingram Spark, you're on Ingram's catalog, basically no physical brick and mortar bookstore is ever going to carry your book unless you call them and beg them.
Yeah.
And then they might carry one or two. And what happens is if you call them and you beg them and they carry one or two or three and then they don't sell in 6 months, they're going to return them and you're going to end up eating that cost. And that's where people get like stuck, right? So, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm going to push it to Barnes. I'm going to push my customer base to Barnes and Noble because I want that like respectability and all that." I have my Barnes and Noble link available to people so that they can see that it's there, but I don't push them there. I do most of my sales through Amazon. Amazon, I don't worry about it. They order a case of them from Ingram, right? And so they get like 15 copies or 20 copies, whatever it is. They never return them. They sit on them until people eventually buy them. And so you see like one big sale all at once from Ingram, and then you see Amazon selling them, and it's like, okay, great. Like I'm not seeing any more money from that because I already got it.
Okay, so you did it all through Ingram versus doing
No,
Amazon.
no, and so I did for Dark White, and I switched it up on Malcolm Karma. So on Malcolm Karma, I also published through KDP. So if you're buying it from Amazon, you're getting it through KDP. I get a bigger royalty on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry about returns hitting me because they don't do that. And then the ebook, I got talked into by Rena. Do we know who Rena is? Like everybody? She Rhino on here. She wrote To Touch a Reaper, and now she's got No Shade in the Desert out. So Rena's a good friend of mine. Her husband actually designed the cover of Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey, and she pushed me to do Kindle Unlimited for Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey, and so I decided to give it 6 months of Kindle Unlimited, and I still think that Kindle Unlimited, much like Kindle Vella, is primarily a romance place.
Yeah, you do very, very well if you're romance, and then depending on your genre, subgenre, it brackets in different ways.
Yeah.
I did fine, but I wanted to diversify, and I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket, so I chose to move the other way. Not that I wasn't doing it when I was there, I was doing pretty well, but I still want to have that ability to sell, even distribute ebooks direct and audiobooks direct. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to move it out, move it wide. And that's what I'm working my way to very slowly.
So I am dedicated to sticking to the 6 months of Kindle Unlimited just to see what happens. And then I will pull it off Kindle Unlimited and make it available wide. And that way I can sell direct and all that stuff too. But
hey, there are authors who swear that if you have, again, certain books on KU and other ones wide, people who like your writing and want the rest of your stuff will move the other way or vice versa. So if I have not done that because I put one or the other, but I've heard from others that some people like that.
That's where I'm at right now. Dark White is available wide and on ebook. You can get it through Nook or Kobo or any of those places. And Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey is on Kindle Unlimited. We'll see. It's an experiment. It's my second book. I'm experimenting so far. Like I've had more than one full book read through KU, but not much more. Like it's not racking up, and I push the hell out of it. But you know, it's one of those things that I'm learning and I'm growing, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, it's been an interesting like transition from the first one to the second one for sure.
Yeah, well, it's also, you had a little bit of time gap with releases because everybody writes at different paces and puts out at different times. And sometimes momentum of readers dissipate a little bit and you have to kind of pick them back up and be like, hey, it's here, come back.
Yeah. And that'll be really evident with book 3 because with Malcolm Karma and Dark White, they were both done when Dark White released. Mm-hmm. So it was like I had 2 books completed, finished the edits and rewrites and everything on Dark White, released that, then started on the edits and rewrites of Malcolm Karma and was able to release that. But Bishop Church, the next one, is not done. So we'll see like how that ends up, because I'm not one of those good people that's able to write every day.
Okay. It's okay. Everybody has their own lives and what you have to deal with and what you have to dedicate to and what you're capable of doing. And so, again, never judge yourself against someone else. Challenge yourself to be better, but yeah. So I totally respect that. I mean, my first book, it took me 10 years from the idea to release because I didn't know what the heck I was doing.
Me too.
And the next one after that was another 2.5, almost 3 years. So, I had these gaps. Now I'm a lot faster, but I also have more time to write. That's different.
I had I don't like Facebook. I don't know if you can even say that, but I don't like that place. But I have found that it is important in terms of marketing. And so I was on there today, and when you log on the first time of the day, it pops up with something that's like a memory, right? And it popped up with this memory that was my original idea of a cover for my next book, Bishop Church. And it said, from 7 years ago. So I've been writing Bishop Church for 7 years. And that's where we're at. Like, I take a long time to write a book.
and each book in this type of story and the genre may require more time or less time. Certain people can write certain types of stories that turn faster. Other people, I mean, I can't fathom, doing like a murder mystery, or like you do thrillers. And I feel like those have to be very complex. And so they take a lot of time.
So see, that's actually funny. Like I really think actually, when I get through promoting in the next month or so, and I really dive back into writing, that Bishop Church is going to come together pretty quickly. But that being said, I am almost doing a page 1 rewrite in a sense, because I have decided to switch it from a thriller to a mystery. And that's why I went like this, because thrillers, like, you can Deus Ex Machina the hell out of a thriller. Like, you can do all sorts of like, oh, you didn't see that coming, did ya? And just blow it all up at the end and be like, this is how it actually happened. Um, in a mystery, you can't do that. In a mystery, the audience has to have a legitimate chance to solve the mystery. Okay. So you can't like hold back crucial pieces of evidence and then like dump them out at the climax and be like, if you had known this, you'd have figured it out. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Thank you. Which is why I always talk about, in terms of movies, like there's two movies that people categorize as a thriller or a mystery, and they have them backwards. And I love it. This makes me so happy to talk about.
Okay, yes.
The movies are The Sixth Sense,
okay,
and The Usual Suspects. Okay? People talk about The Usual Suspects like it's a mystery. Okay? Who is Kaiser Soze? Like, what are the clues? What are the this? What are the that? Oh, da 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 da. Bullshit. The Usual Suspects is a thriller.
Yes.
And it keeps you on the edge of your seat. It keeps you guessing, but they don't tell you anything important until the climax. It's the climax that they like zoom in on the coffee cup falling and start close-ups of the things on the bulletin board. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, that came from here and that came from here. But they never showed you any of that during the movie. Okay, they showed you that there was a bulletin board. You see that the guy is drinking a cup of coffee, but they don't show you the part that's important. Okay, so at the end, they Deus Ex Machina the whole thing, and they go, "Oh, boom, boom, boom! Guess, look at all this. Guess you didn't know. What a surprise!" And it's like, yeah, because you fucking like kept it from us. Like that was cheating. But it's not cheating because it's a thriller. Okay. On the other hand, you've got The Sixth Sense, which because it's kind of like ghosty and horror-y, people assume like call it a thriller. But The Sixth Sense puts all the clues on the table during the movie. Okay, think about it. At the reveal, when they reveal the movie, when they do the Usual Suspects thing, and they start showing you the things, they're not showing you anything new. They're showing you the things that you already saw. They're showing you that the Bruce Willis and the mom are sitting in the room, and neither of them are looking at each other or talking to each other. Right? They're showing that he's sitting at the table with his wife and she's sitting there, but neither of them, like, she's not ever talking to him. Right? Everything that reveals the mystery of that story is given to you in the movie, and that's what makes it a mystery. So, as I'm rewriting Bishop Church, I have to go back and say, okay, I've done all these things, but now I need to make sure that all the things that the audience needs are there, and then I've sufficiently shrouded them. Like, I've sufficiently like added misleading things around them or red herrings or other things. But if you don't actually give them the clues they need to figure it out, then you're not a mystery.
Okay, so interestingly, I decided to, because I'm a very fantasy person, most of the stuff I read is fantasy or ancient, epic, saga, stuff like that, the mythology-based origin story stuff. But right now I'm reading what I presume is a murder mystery. Now I'm going to have to like really analyze and decide is this mystery or thriller, because it's The Thin Man, which I'm trying to remember the author, but became a black and white series of shows back in the era. What
Chandler? Is The Thin Man Chandler? I think it might be. Let me look.
It's the same person as Maltese Falcon, whoever wrote that.
Chandler.
Yeah.
Raymond Chandler.
So that's the one I'm reading right now, and I've always loved the movies, so now I'm going back and reading the book, and the way, so far, it's laying out all the clues. Again, I already know that more or less the endings. I've seen the movie, but now I'm going back.
Dashiell Hammett. Dashiell Hammett. He's the other one.
I think it truly is a murder mystery and not a thriller, because there are a lot of stuff seeded, but there's also a lot of other stuff seeded. So it does confuse you until, I'm assuming.
Well, yeah, you can't just drop the clues, because then it's not a mystery. Then they're just telling people what's going on. Yes. You need to have people be able to sort through it. And it's like I said, it's Dashiell Hammett that did the movie. Um, but yeah, so it's a new thing for me. Like I'm excited to be working on something like that. And then my next book after that, well, God, I have I have like four things that are like in contention, and we'll have to see. But one of the things is a first person domestic thriller, which is a thing I've not done before. But I also just recently came up with a thriller slash romance book. Like it'll be a legit, like the goal is to make it so that nobody can look at me and go, yeah, but it's not a romance. Like I want it to I so here's my thing. I have this like chip on my shoulder about romance books.
Yep.
And my chip on my shoulder is that every other genre in literature rewards people and praises people who defy the conventions, who go against the tropes, who say, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to turn this on its head. I'm going to take, this idea that is just, pervasive in the genre, and I'm going to like flip it. And people go, oh my God, he did such a good job of like, circumventing the tropes, and like it's so interesting. And in romance, they go, fuck you. You didn't write a romance. They go, you don't get to circumvent or defy our
Actually,
tropes
yes.
or anything.
By definition of at least certain type of romance, yes, you have to at least end with the happy ending of the main couple, and that has to be the thing, or else
Well,
it's
and
not.
there's all sorts of other things too, right? I've learned a lot.
Which is interesting because I have a book. It's on submissions right now. I don't think I think we're going to end up self-publishing regardless, but it'll be my first one that deals with a heavy romantic plot. It's still a tragic thing, and so by definition, it can't be qualified as romantasy because it's not a happy ending.
Right.
So I have to figure out how to market it and be like, well, if you like that, but you're okay with being very sad.
Right. So here's the thing, right? This is kind of what I want. This is kind of what I want to do. And I'm not going to copy this exactly. But there's all sorts of tropes that I want to walk the tightrope where a real romance reader will read it and go, "Fine. You did adhere to it, but there's a knife's edge that you're walking on there." That's what I want. And I like the idea that the movie Basic Instinct
Okay.
qualifies as a romance. Okay? Because because there's a thriller story going on, but they meet, they're enemies, but then they get close, and it's like they're pushing against each other, but then they come together, and then they do fall in love, but then there's things that push them apart, and then at the end they fall in bed together, and it's this whole, we're gonna like Rugrats and make or like whatever, like bunnies, and make lots of Rugrats and like live happily ever after, and then it goes black, and then it comes back, and the camera pans down past the bed to the floor, and the ice pick is sitting on the floor, and the audience knows she did it. She's the killer, and she had that there in case she decided to kill him. But in terms of the ending of the story, they are together, and they both are proclaiming happily ever after. And so I'm gonna see what I can do to like really fuck with it, and I'm not gonna do that ending, but I have an idea.
I love that. I do see a question popped up for us. Question was, how do you stop yourself from editing while writing? I find it hard not to. Do you edit while you write, or do you wait, just go through first time and then deal with editing at a later date?
I proclaim loudly and strongly that you should not edit while you write. Mm-hmm. I am also an enormous hypocrite. I believe strongly in the idea of not editing while you're writing, and I don't really. Okay, so I will go through and let things. Like if I change my direction and I know that there's something in the back there that I'm going to have to fix, I let it go and I know that I'll fix it. What I do is when I hit a wall, when I hit writer's block, and I'm just like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do next? Like, I don't know what to do next. Or if I take a break, like if I haven't written, like Bishop Church right now, right? I haven't written on it in months. If I'm going to go back and start up doing that again, to get myself back into it, I'll go back and start going through it from the beginning. And I'm reading it and I'll start fixing things and like editing and like, oh, this scene doesn't, fix up the scene, or, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. I'm going to fix that. And so I'll do that to get myself re-immersed and back in the writing. Once I'm back in the writing, I don't edit while I write. I don't have a problem with editing while writing, except that people use it as procrastination. I think that that's really the problem, is that if you are a person who's like, I'm going to edit while I go, which means I can't move on from these 3 chapters that I just did until they are perfect, you're never going to finish your book. Because then you're going to write the next chapter and you're going to make sure that that's perfect. Then you're going to write the next chapter, but something is going to happen in that chapter that makes you need to change something in chapter 2. So now you're going to need to go back and edit chapter 2, and that means you have to edit chapter 3, and then chapter 4, and then now you're 5, but now you have to go back and do 4, and like you're never going to finish. Just write the story. Like Gina, what's her name? I want to say Gina Davis. Gina, whatever her name is, I'm author, writer, editor, publisher, she gives the writing advice. She's amazing. Her channel is a masterclass in writing. And one of the things that she talks about is this idea of some people outline. I can't outline. I'm not good at outlining. But what I have taken from her is when you start, write the whole story down like you're just telling it to your friend. Like you're like, hey, I got this idea for a story. This happens, 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 this happens. That's the surprise. This happens at the end. Okay? And they go, oh, that's a cool idea. Now you've got your story written down. Okay? You've got your beginning, middle, and end with your twist. You wrote your story. Now you just have to go back and make it 80,000 words, right? And I think that that is a brilliant way to do it. And then each time you pass, it gets a little bit bigger. So like, then it's like, okay, now, let me tell you. Now, remember when I said this? Okay, but while that's happening, this is also happening. And so you go back and you do the whole thing again, just like adding, and you build it like a pyramid, right? And you're just adding and adding and adding. And I think that that is a good way to not edit while you're writing, but also be able to continue to build and change while you're writing.
No, I love that. I actually do love that, especially for someone who's new to writing and hasn't figured out their particular flow. That is a great way to at least aim for. Everybody's different. Like the way I write or have written up until now, every book is different, every project's different, every series is different, but I am fortunate that up until this point, when I write something, it's very close to the end. It takes me a long time to write it, but I kind of like you, don't necessarily worry too much about editing as I go. I'll write a chapter, I'll do a quick reread of that chapter and just make sure if there's any quick spelling errors, grammar, any of that, base stuff, that like flags on Word or something like that. Okay, cool. I'll do that, put it away. But again, I'm trying to move forward because when I go back to edit, I do a read through as soon as I'm done to see if everything's flowing. And like you said, sometimes you'll think of something later on that you're like, ooh, I need to tuck that back on page 1. I just make a note of that saying, hey, I need to go back on chapters around here, put in something so it ties it together. And so when I do my read through, my preliminary one, I can do those tweaks as I go ahead.
And while I'm writing, like I'll come up to a thing and I'll be like, oh, da 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 da. Like if it's not a main character, I'll be like da 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 da, and I'll just brackets and I'll put character name, and I'll just keep going, or I'll put like store name or street name or address, or I'll put like make this make sense, right? or I'll be like needs motivation or something like that, but keep going. Like I know it happens, but I know that I need to like go back and give it a motivation to happen. And I'll do that on the second pass, right? But I think I think that the problem is that the people who want to edit while they're going,
Hmm.
and this is a broad generalization, so it's not, if you hear this and it feels like I'm coming at you and it's not true, then ignore me, okay? But I think a lot of people that want to edit while they go, it's because when they get to the end of the first draft, they want to be done.
Yeah, well, okay,
Yeah,
that's
they,
hey,
they,
that's still
they
that.
want to get to the end and be like, I wrote a book and I edited while I went, so it's already done, and I don't have to go back. I don't have to put it in a drawer for 2 weeks and then come back and look at it again. I don't have, like, it's, I did it while I was doing it. It's good. And it's like you do you, like everybody gets to do their own thing. And with independent publishing, you can write anything and publish it, and that's fine. But like if you want readership and you want to build a fan base and you want people to want to read your stuff and come back, um, yeah, you need to go back and you need to edit and you need to edit again and you need to edit again. And you don't, that's why, and God love them, like there is a little bit of jealousy, but when I see these authors that put out 3 and 4 books a year, there's part of me that's like, okay, like
But are you a full-time author, or do you have a other job?
I have another job. But even if I was a full-time author, I have a hard time seeing how I could write, edit, uh, format everything, do beta reading, get feedback, have an editor look at it, all that, and have it out and have 4 books a year out. I mean, if you can, and you know the secret to the magic, great. Like you're better than me, and I get it.
Here's my secret. When I write, it's going to take me probably a little longer than a year to put out a book. But I've had that backlog. COVID helped. It was one of the perks. But because I worked so long and had these kind of like gaps of time, now it looks like I'm turning out books quicker
Right,
because I
but what
have
about
so
when you
many in
catch
this
up?
stage and have so
That's
many in this stage. And so it's an optical illusion. If I talk about how long it takes from A to Z, it's going to be far longer than it appears, but I have multiple books constantly at different stages. So it's
right.
a churning machine, which I'm trying to keep up with.
That's
But
that's the secret, right? Because it's
it's
like
not what you
you
think.
you can catch up to yourself, and then it's like, okay, now I just published the last one and I only have one that I'm writing still. like that's that's what I was saying before. Like I put out Dark White in February, I think, something like that. And then Malcolm Karma came out in December. So it's like, oh, he can put out like a book a year or a book every 11 months. No, 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 I can't. I'm caught up now. Like I had two like in the canon, and both of those have been shot off now, and the third one isn't done. So that's what I worry about, is just like this idea of like you can get yourself caught up, so I agree. Like if that's the secret, then I know that secret, and I appreciate that. I and if you can, and
That's
if
my
you are disciplined enough to sustain that for years, then I just need to take whatever medication you're taking.
I don't know. Well, also, again, with the optical illusion for my case personally, is I wrote a novella series while I was putting out a long full length. So the full length was one a year. Novellas was multiple, so I always had something releasing, but they're not full length books, so I can put out more a year, which was an illusion, which made me feel good that I was like, look at me. But they're shorter works. They really are, and so
Yeah, no,
but it does give you more. How many things have you published? Well, this number, but if you really think about it, it's only this number when you're talking about full-length books. So, an illusion, it's magic.
but see, I don't like that either, because I think novellas are wonderful, and actually short stories are amazing. And if you think back on like cultural impact, and the stories that have made some of the best movies or that have like stuck with us culturally, so many of them are short stories that were published in magazines and stuff. I would love to be able to write short stories, and one of the reasons that I hosted Book Talk Writers Group for so long, and will again, it's on pause until we figure out if there's book talk. But one of the reasons I did that is I wanted to teach myself to be able to write short stories, because I would sit down and have an idea and I'm like, I want to make this a short story, and I would start writing, and then I'd look up and it'd be 40,000 words, and I'd be like, well, I guess I have another novel. Like and I've got again, like talking about things in the bank, I've got probably 6 half done, 20, 30, 40,000 word pieces that may never even get done because I don't know that, they're going to. But Palrath, yes, there is, but you can only finish draft. Yeah.
That is true. And no, short stories, that was one thing, is like I started with a decent size full length, and then I wanted to challenge myself to get a little shorter, so I did the novellas, but then wanting to be able to gift out things to my newsletter or other people. I've just started a Patreon. Challenging yourself to do short stories is a great little gift. And how do you tell a succinct story, beginning, middle, and end, and X amount of, words? And that's something that I'm trying to do at least one a year, maybe 2, just again to try to, that challenge is great. Tell a micro-sized story.
Yeah.
But it's also fun because depending on what you write, I write, fantasy series. I can either tie it into a series that I'm working on or just tell something that's totally independent. And it's fun. It's a little refreshing. It could be a palate cleanser. It could be whatever you want it to be. But
I will tell you, first of all, like you said, I want to be able to do short stories because I too am just trying to start a Patreon in terms of not even as a moneymaker, just as a way to branch out and have not my eggs in one basket, right? And so I would love to be able to have some short stories that I put out that are just to, for those people. I struggle with it in prose, but it's funny. I can write a scene. So I can write a 2,000 to 5,000 word scene that is, atmospheric and has a sort of but it's not really a story, right? And so I'm not saying that isn't valuable and that people don't enjoy that. And I'm not saying that, but I can't really take it and be okay, now I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger, because as soon as I go to make it a little bit bigger, it's 40,000 words.
Wait. Here you go. This is an idea. I'm going to Patreon again, just started mine, and trying to think outside the box of what you can do with that platform. You could always put a scene out, and because you can have chats and prompts, you can say, so what happens? And then everybody votes, and then you write the next scene. And you could do a group story with your Patreon.
Katharine, you should be selling these ideas.
There you go. Here you go. Take it. Use it.
I am going to use that. Absolutely, I'm going to use that.
You don't have to worry about a short story, but you're co-creating a scene. My Facebook group co-creates, would they build a monster annually towards the end of the year, and my gift to them is a short story that's features that monster. But that's kind of how we do a co-create thing. My newsletter just started doing that whole communal build a story. But for you, if you're good at scenes, set the scene up and say what happens.
It's a choose your own adventure book that instead of flipping back and forth, you're just telling the author what to write. I love that. Yes. I am so I'm going to put that into action tomorrow. Good. That is I'm working with a couple different marketing people. Nova is doing a live right after us, where she's talking to Kara about marketing. Her and I did one last week or 2 weeks ago about marketing. And she's been a real fount of information in terms of marketing. And then I'm also working with Khan, who is really giving me some motivation in the YouTube direction and stuff, and direction on that. But this is a marketing a genius. Like I can do a banner and be like, choose your own adventure as we write it. This is I I love it. You should be selling this.
Well, not necessarily that idea. I'm trying to again. I don't know if that would work for me, but if you're good at scenes, that's great. I like the action part. The scene buildup is like the thing that I has ailed. But if you're good at scenes, that's a great one for you. I did see a question that was asking, are your books defined as clean? You said thriller mystery, but like, are they clean or are they, how would you define them for a person?
Well, I mean, it depends on what you're talking about in terms of clean, right? I would call my books rated PG-13 or rated R. They're not rated NC-17. There is, but they're not YA books, right? They are adult books. They are thrillers. There is violence in them. There is SA in both of them, I think. There is a fairly heavy, spicy scene in Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. And Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey has a spicy scene, like a legitimately spicy scene, and then it has kind of like the back half of a spicy scene, like the aftermath of a spicy scene that's still a little adult. And so are they clean? No. I mean, they're not like for chili pepper romance stuff. Do they have spice? Malcolm Karma has spice. I got a little help on it because it gives me the ick to write it as a white cis heterosexual male. Like it is, but that's why I'm challenging myself, and I'm going to write a romance book. To because and when I said I was going to do that, I had people coming into my comments saying, "Don't do it. Men can't write spice," and I was like, "Oh, now fuck you. Oh, now you're done. Now like that you just sealed the deal. Like I was toying with the idea, and now I'm going to do it." So a spicy thriller romance is probably my next thing after Bishop Church, or maybe even before Bishop Church, depending on how motivated I get.
It's okay. My one of my other author friends on here, J. Gabriel Gates, he's releasing. He's about to run, or he is running. He is running a Kickstarter, I think, for his first adult romance book. But it was because his wife was like, "I want you to write a spicy book about dragons," and he's like, "Okay, here we go." But like, I do think it's possible. As far as the question turns to me, my young adult series is totally clean. There's a lot of action and adventure and quests. And there are some characters that will unalive periodically, but it is a clean, I think PG-13, no spice fantasy. My new adult series, which is my shifter fantasy, the Incarnate Saga, that one is qualified new adult. It does get darker and grittier in the action scenes, but again, there's no chili peppers. And then for the Guardian Speaker, which is my Viking dark myth retelling, it's probably the most graphic one when it comes to violence and unaliving people. There is a one spice scene in one book, but that's way down the line, and then that's it. And then we go back to the point.
The one thing I'll say is that I mean I categorize my novels as modern noir. Okay, so we're not talking about, they're not being written, they're not taking place in the 1940s. It's not like 1945 trench coat, despite the cover of Dark White where and the character does have a trench coat and a fedora in it, but it's almost like ironic. And just so it's not Casablanca, Maltese Falcon, The Thin Man, like The Third Man, any of that. It's modern noir. It's taking that noir idea of broken, morally gray characters, anti-heroes, reluctant anti-heroes, villains that are sympathetic, that you can be like, oh my God, like I understand, like they're the villain, but I understand why they're doing what they're doing. And then adding like the atmosphere, like lots of rain, right? And like, seedy underground clubs and stuff like that. you know, John Wick, John Wick is a noir. Okay. And so when people are like, oh, like I get turned off by, your description because you say it's noir, freaking John Wick is noir.
I think it's
So
people don't know the definition. They're thinking again the older black and white, certain
yes.
type of like the gumshoe mystery, and that can be noir. But as you said, there by definition, it can be a wider thing. It's an education of the reader of what certain genres can be.
Yeah, I feel like I have to do that about once a year, make a video where I'm just like, hey guys, let's talk about what this is again.
Yeah.
Blade Runner, yes, is noir. Blade Runner isn't just noir. Blade Runner is like they decided to be noir and then they leaned in so heavy that that there's nothing else. I mean, it's almost more noir than it is sci-fi. It is, yeah, and it's the same thing with like LA Confidential leaned into it, and all these, it is not a niche genre. It is a very, very common genre. We just don't use that word very much anymore.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And also, before I forget, I did have another. I just popped in my head, and you may laugh and be like, "This is absolutely dumb." But if you ever, because you right now you're talking about trying to edge into the mystery side of things, you already do thrillers. Want to do a fun, I don't know, maybe even a cover reveal? I feel like you could totally do something where you followed like the stereotypical red string, and it gives you a clue about what the title could be, and then it like turns and you follow the string and it gives you another clue, and at the end you're like you put together either the title or you
Catherine,
show.
Catherine, you got to stop. You got to stop. This is how you make money, okay? You
It doesn't work for that one. Does not work for my genre. It works for you though.
Yeah. Well, right. So John is saying Sin City. Yes, Sin City is the exaggeration of noir to the absurd, right? It is, which is fine, and I love. Don't get me wrong, I love Sin City, and I even liked Sim City: A Dame to Kill For, even though it wasn't very good. But I own Sin City in like 3 different formats. I love that movie. I love everything about it, but it is caricaturing noir, okay? And so, but the problem is that when we stop talking about a thing, when we let it kind of like become a thing in the past, and then we start caricaturing it, right? Eventually, the general public thinks that the caricature is the thing, and they don't realize that it's a caricature of the thing. And I feel like noir suffers from that, and so that's why I try to like say it's a modern noir, and then I try to like talk about like things that it's comparable to. Luther is my favorite example because I freaking love that show. I basically think that television was invented so that eventually we could have Luther. Um, um, and so I love that, and it is noir. John Wick is noir. There's so many examples, and basically everything from the 80s, everything, like all of it. Simon and Simon, Hunter, Cagney and Lacey. They're all just like noir, like Roger Rabbit. Roger Rabbit is, yeah, for sure.
Uh, you see, yes, some people think noir is the color black. Yes.
And
And
that's why we use that word, because it is dark, it is black. But we're not talking about black and white in terms of film. We're talking about thematically, right? It is black, it is dark. You are dealing with systemic corruption. You are dealing with, your heroes are not good people. They're broken people. They're often doing what they're doing for selfish reasons. Yes, moonlighting is nothing but noir. Even though it's comedy, it's noir.
at this point, you could just have a noir movie group coming out of this conversation.
So that's one of the things I'm working on is a on YouTube is this idea of like analyzing noir films that people don't necessarily know are noir. And I think the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to be dealing with The Day of the Jackal, which is a um, is a espionage movie, and it is a political thriller, but it
Okay.
is also very noir because it is the system of government, it is the insiders in the system that are hiring the assassin to take out the and it's very dark and very like and the underbelly and how he gets his weapons and stuff. So I'm doing a series where I'm going to compare the book to the original movie from the 70s to the movie in the 90s with Bruce Willis to the new streaming series on Peacock, which is excellent. And just talk about like the evolution of the story, the evolution of the ideas, how the characters change, how they update it through the times, and why it is noir.
Yes, and it can be, well. There are different types of darker stories. So I see the comment saying, but yes, new with noir, there's a certain kind of themes of, for instance, like you said, the main character is usually the broken character, not necessarily a good person, and thematically, as you were talking about, it is darker in a lot of political ways sometimes, versus something like a dark fantasy, which again can have a lot of those. I guess there could be thematically overlap between noir and dark fantasy to some extent. It's,
Yeah.
it's set up in a world where the characters are broken, and again, maybe some of the political intrigue, but just because they overlap doesn't mean they're the same thing.
Yeah, just because a thing is dark does not mean it's noir.
Yeah.
But the thing is, noir is so like it's such a big umbrella that people borrow like parts of it for things, and so a lot of times you'll see a movie that isn't necessarily like one of the best ones I think can think of. I can't remember what it's called now, but last year I watched a series on Apple Plus Prime, whatever it's called, and it was about wine, and it was about this wine competition. Okay, and it borrowed so much from noir that I felt comfortable saying it was noir, even though it kind of wasn't. It kind of wasn't. Like I could see a person making an argument that it wasn't, but it definitely borrowed. Are you going to tackle female lead noir? I am in the yes, in the thriller, the noir thriller romance that I'm doing has a female lead. Her name is Viral Youngblood, and she is a lawyer, and she is also a call girl. And she put herself through law school as a call girl, but is not making enough as a lawyer to stop being a call girl. So she's doing both, and it's going to be a noir about that. And I'm super excited about it. It is just blowing up in my head. That's why people. So super tangent. Like I went in a couple weeks ago, and I was the mystery reader for my son's third grade class, and I came in, and he was like so excited. And my son, you saw if you saw my video recently, like he dressed up as me for his celebrity day at school. Like my kids are convinced I'm famous. Um,
It's because you are. It's because you are.
he's so excited, and so the teacher had told the class like as a clue like our mystery reader today is a published author, and Noak was like, "It's my dad," and so they all had questions about being a writer,
Mhm.
and one of the first questions is always like, what's your favorite thing that you've written? And the answer, I mean, for me, and I think for most writers, is whatever I'm writing right now. Whatever I'm writing right now is my favorite thing I've ever written. And so, uh, and so if I get excited about something, I will definitely like shelve what I'm working on. And a lot of writers complain about that. I have no problem shelving what I'm working on and starting something new. And if I get through that, then that's the next thing. Because as long as I'm super excited about it and have that drive, then that's what I should be working on.
And that's I think that's very important for people to hear because they get so concerned if I'm working on a project, I have to force my way to be done. And last year I was working through a book 6 and it got very complicated, and the type of outlining I did or have done up until that point, it needed to be changed up and a lot more intense. And I just was kind of getting a burnout of working on that piece because it was slogging through to the point where I had other projects in mind. So I was like, I'm going to just jump on one of my other projects that I've been wanting to just do because, you know, they're standalones or just a duology. And I wrote one and finished it in like 6 weeks. And I was just like, I feel good. I am a writer again.
Right?
It was
And
so refreshing.
this is something that I've thought of for a long time, and I've tried to give this advice to writers, and that is there is no such thing as writer's block.
Yeah.
What writer's block is you're blocked on what you're writing right now. It doesn't mean that you can't write. It means that you can't write what you're writing right now. It is stuck. And so when I used to get writer's block, this is back like in, let's say 2015, when Twitter was still like really good and not, you know, fascist. So I would go on Twitter and it was still only 140 characters, right? And so I would write a compelling opening line to a novel in 140 characters. I would just fuck around and find out, like, till something felt good. I would write, and it would go da 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 da, and then it would start going into the red, right? And then I'd start cutting it and like making it smaller and smaller until I could just fit it into 140 characters. And sometimes that meant like replacing "and" with an ampersand or whatever, like, you know, all the cheats to like get it into 140 characters. And then I'd hit post, and then I'd write the next sentence in that story. And I'd do the same thing. I'd try to make something that, even if you hadn't seen the first one, if you saw this, you'd be like, what is this? What's going on? And I had to also leave room for the hashtag am writing, right? And I would just start doing that and posting and posting and posting and posting and just trying to polish one sentence at a time, basically. And that's how Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey started. And Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey was originally, you're going to come in and say that John Wick is neo-noir, but you're going to use Blade Runner as just straight up noir. Okay, you and I are going to talk later. And anyway, that's how I got Malcolm Karma. And that's how I would get over writer's block, is just write something else. If you can't write, it's because you don't want to write what you're writing.
Yep. Well, yes. That, or you get overwhelmed and sometimes you just need that breather.
Yeah.
But whichever way, it doesn't mean you can't even go back and finish it. It just, like you said, it's maybe not right now. You just need that break. And so, you know, and I think that is a good thing that authors need to let themselves have breaks and say it's okay. It's okay not, you know, to have a bad day. It's okay to, you know, take a break, walk away from a project, do something else. It's fine. Everybody needs what you need. Now, let me ask you, because the hour is like sped on by, and I feel like when I've talked with you the last time, we kind of did this. It's just you blink and
I'm not good about talking about my stuff. Don't worry.
Just blink and it's over. But hey, talking about craft and again the genre, I mean that's all important too. But you mentioned, you know, your books are where your books are found already earlier. Where can you be found outside of this place? Because we don't know how long, you know, certain places are. So other socials, website, email. You did mention Patreon, I know, a little earlier too.
Yeah, I do have a Patreon. It's got some paid tiers, but it's also got a free tier. And the free tier is the important one, because the free tier is what gets you access to Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey, the special edition. So it's my dime store edition. It is a 4.25 by 7-inch mass market paperback size. So it'll fit in your back pocket. And it's got a special weathered cover in a matte finish, and it is got a little gold seal on the front. that says that it's the dime store special edition, and it comes. It's only available through my Patreon. You can get it with the free Patreon. You just have to sign up, and then that gives you the link to buy it. But it every one of them is not only signed but numbered, so you know, like, your numbered signed edition. And it also comes with some stickers and some postcards and stuff like that. So definitely Patreon. I have a Discord. It's the Book Talk Writers Group Discord. You can find the link to that on all this stuff is on my link in bio stuff. I've got a website that is, I think, pretty respectable, but I'm working with Con to update it and make it even better. I'm on all the other platforms that you can think of except for X. I don't do X, but all the other ones you can find me there. My activity there is, varies platform by platform. I'm pretty big on Blue Sky right now. I do a lot on Blue Sky. Yeah, like you can find me. YouTube is where I'm pushing people. YouTube is, and I've got a particularly open weekend, so I promised my therapist today that I would have 4 videos produced for YouTube this weekend. So there'll be 2 for the I'm reading House of Leaves so you don't have to, and there'll be 2 for the Dark White audiobook.
That's neat. I love that. Yeah, I just started playing around with, I've had a YouTube for a while, just started playing around with repurposing some of the videos here for shorts, and just been fascinating how that's changed the algorithms and started pulling people in. I would never have thought of it. But so I am trying to play around and build up that following as well, so I definitely understand that. But let me ask you, and for anybody else who's listening, is there any announcement you wanted to make that you didn't get to make? Any questions you had you didn't get to ask, or topics you wanted to cover that we didn't get to at this point?
No, I would say that for people who have been interested or been part of Book Talk Writers Group, I am actively in my brain trying to figure out how to do that again. I don't know that it's going to be on TikTok because it's precarious. But I am going to have a writers group in the next couple months, not necessarily next month, but in the next couple months, starting up again. It'll be the same kind of prompt-based general feedback group. And then, just keep an eye out. Like, I've got a Substack that I'm writing articles on. I've got Patreon where you can order the Dime Store edition of Malcolm Karma. Both of my books are still available widely. You can get them. I encourage you to get them on Amazon. I make more money that way. Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey is available on Kindle Unlimited, so you can read it for free. And yeah, I'm really building up over on YouTube.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a moment. I was just blinking, and I saw one of your posts, and I was just like, when was the last time that we had talked?
Yeah, it's been a little bit. We shouldn't make it go so long next time.
I know that's probably more my fault than anything. I go on autopilot for a while, and then all of a sudden I'm like, man, I feel like I'm losing touch with people. I need to get back into the groove. But I really do appreciate you coming out and hanging out. If you ever, like I said, want to do one of these either here or on a different platform, I will be doing them. All depends on the future, where that will be.
Absolutely.
But,
well, thank you so much.
Thank you, and have a lovely rest of your evening. And thank you, everybody who's been chiming in.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.